Okay, so it's time for Health Club, which is brought to you by Lipton Tea and Voltic Natural Mineral Water. And joining me in the studio this morning, I have Dr. Andre Kwesi-Kuma. He is a medical director of Eden Family Hospital. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine.
Good.
How are you doing?
What's the medical definition of a sore throat then?
Well, sore throat is that irritating, pain that one has in the throat. Mm-hmm. If you want to talk about the throat, you are talking about the area behind the tongue,
right?
Just before we begin to swallow, just before the gullet or the esophagus. Mm-hmm. So that whole area is the throat, and there are a number of structures there. So that soreness, irritating feeling, painful feeling, sometimes when one is swallowing, there's difficulty in swallowing. Mm-hmm. We put all together as sore throat. Symptomatic description.
I think the Americans call it strep throat. Is that the same thing?
No, strep is a bacteria. I mean, it's a form of bacterium that causes sore throat. Okay. Just like the flu, there's one that is flu. It's also type of sore throat. So there are different types. So when one says got a strep infection, the strep infection can also lead to sore throat. Okay. Just like the flu or the common cold leading to sore throat.
All right. Yeah. Okay, so those are a couple of causes of sore throat. What else can cause a sore throat?
Well, basically, viruses can cause it, bacteria, and then we have what causes viruses. For example, the common cold is a virus called rhinovirus. It leads to sore throat. There's another one called the flu. Flu is caused by influenza virus. Yeah. We have the monoclosis, and that one is usually transmitted through saliva. So if one person kisses somebody, different kissing, you can transmit that virus in that way. Okay. Things like chickenpox and so on are also viruses that can lead to sore throat. Okay. Then when we come to the bacteria, streptococcus, that's the full name, is also one of the causes of sore throat. We have diphtheria, whooping cough, etc. All these are forms of bacteria. Then others, for example, irritants like alcohol, can lead to sore throat. Maybe somebody yelling in a stadium or yelling at people for a very long time can strain the area, leading to sore throat. And these days, people practice oral sex, and that can also lead to sore throat because we have gonorrhea of the throat, we have chlamydia infection of the throat, etc. And some people also react to smoke when places in
smoking environments.
All these also can lead to sore throat, or they have allergies towards some chemicals, right? Or dry room or dusty environment.
Okay, so there are a lot of things
this. Over 20 causes commonly lead to sore throat.
Okay. Now we saw in the video various different ways to ease the sore throat, lozenges, cough mixtures. But what is the proper course of treatment for treating a sore throat?
Basically, it depends on the cause. Most of it is caused by viruses, and these viruses are kind of mild. And if the body's immune system is adequate or good, it will clear on its own within 7 days. So they really will go off on their own if it's mild, and then one can just handle it that way. However, one of the home treatments is just using salted water, for example, about this size of bottle, half of that with a teaspoon of salt. Okay. And when one gargles it, it helps with the relief. Okay. Lozenges too can help with the relief and then to clear the symptoms. Cough syrup sometimes also suppresses the relief, the symptoms. But if it's a bacterial origin, like the strep or diphtheria and so on, then it becomes more severe, especially when the place becomes very red, and then there are white patches and pus on it. Then it becomes very severe, and there will be difficulty in swallowing. In that case, antibiotics may be needed to clear the underlying infection, to give relief. So it depends on the cause and the severity of the condition. Okay. Yeah.
We were discussing this off air, and I heard that cough mixture doesn't actually cure sore throat. What's the basis behind that?
Yeah, it's because if most of it is caused by viruses and then is self-limiting, the body will handle it. Cough syrup really does not add anything to it. Okay. If it's a severe one by bacteria, then you need antibiotics. Right. So, strictly speaking, what you need is antibiotics to cure the bacterial infection. If it's just a virus, a sore throat will just add very little. Cough syrup will just add something very little. So, in some countries, cough syrup is banned because from the evidence, it doesn't add anything. It just gives some psychological boost that something is being done to the condition when actually the body will handle it, or what you call a self-limiting condition. Yeah.
Is treatment different for adults and children?
Yes, to a large extent, because in children, for example, sometimes it's difficult to see exactly what, especially when they are babies. The child will have difficulty in feeding, difficulty in breathing, and so on. And because children, for example, their babies cannot speak, they are handled differently. If they are not feeding and therefore they may be losing water and becoming dehydrated, then you may have to institute some IV treatment.
Okay.
If they can feed, then maybe give some soothness. If they are having some rise in temperature, maybe you give some paracetamol syrup to reduce the temperature. Sometimes in children, because their immunity is suppressed, a viral infection can raise their temperature. Therefore, you may need some paracetamol syrup to reduce it. So it's handled differently in children than in adults.
Okay. Yeah. All right. In just a general question here as well. I mean, what kind of basic things should we have in a first aid kit at home? Because when it comes to kids, obviously, when they have colds and coughs, we reach for the cough mixture very easily. But what are the basic things that we should have in the first aid kit?
First aid kit, painkillers, because pain is the most common symptom that we experience.
Okay.
So common painkillers like paracetamol, brufen should be in there. Something like plaster for cats, plaster and cotton, cotton or gauze must also be in there. And then antacid, maybe a mouth stomach ache or something, so an antacid also needs to be in there. Going with the plaster, also gingival to clean a cat or something need to be in the first aid kit, but just basic drugs. And but we must also be mindful of the expiry date. Sometimes these things can be the first aid kit box for a long time and they expire. And when they expire, they become poisons. So the expiry date must be watched very, very carefully. We should avoid putting antibiotics and other prescription drugs in the first aid kit box, because those ones are supposed to be prescribed and then they are not supposed to be transferred from one person to the other. So basic drugs for tummy ache, for pain, for small cuts and bruises, those are things we need to keep in the first aid box. Yeah.
So, for instance, people who work in industrial areas, what kind of advice you would give them to avoid sore throats? Because obviously they'll be dealing with all kinds of toxins, all kinds of emissions. Is there any advice you give to people who work in that environment?
Yes. First of all, before they start working there, I mean. Of course, I'm sure they may have gone through a pre-employment medical screening, so that the allergies are known. And if they are in an environment where there are some chemicals or gases that can irritate that area, they need to know ahead of time that I'm allergic to this, I'm allergic to dust, and therefore the adequate protection must be instituted. So some places they have protection, masks to wear so that they don't inhale such dangerous gases to lead to sore throat. Not only sore throat, they can lead to other complications as well. Also some for the ear and so on, so that sound, they don't have too much sound, damaging the eardrum and so on. So pre-employment medical screening is very important to know their medical status before they enter such occupations. And then things in occupational health also deals with health at the workplace, so to prevent the people getting injured. Injury, not physical injury, but chemical injuries is important. So all those things institute to protect the worker against things that they come across in the workplace, like it may be radiation, it may be gas, it may be something physical, and so on.
All right. Now, some people, when they have sore throats, end up getting earaches as well. Is there a connection between the two? What is the relationship?
Yes, there's a direct connection.
Okay.
In fact, the throat and the ear, there's a direct connection as well, and the nose, they are all interlinked. There's an area where there are connections where they all come together. Therefore, if there's an infection, bacterial infection in the throat area, it can climb up into the ear.
Right.
So if somebody has sore throat and then it complicates or it leads to earache, it's a sign that it's getting complicated or it's getting very severe and then you need to be in hospital. It means that the infection is spreading, and if you don't take care, it can spread throughout the whole body and it can be life-threatening. So earache is one of the things you watch out for in sore throat that is getting worse. Just like other ones like difficulty in breathing or temperature rising or unable to breathe. Or unable to swallow. All these are signs that the sore throat is getting worse.
You mentioned about a home remedy with water and salt. I personally chew ginger. Are there any other home remedies that people could use at home without actually going to a pharmacy or seeking medical help for a sore throat?
Okay, the ginger too is another one, and fruits.
Fruits,
You know,
okay.
fruits have vitamin C,
Right.
and then vitamin C also aids in these conditions. When it's a viral infection in the mouth, throat area, they can aid. So fruits, whether watermelon, pawpaw, oranges, etc.,
Okay.
can help in that regard. So fruits, the salt water, the ginger, all this.
It all help.
Yeah.
Okay. Doc, I want to thank you so much for coming in this morning and
You're welcome.
assisting us medically in this particular field. We were talking about sore throats this morning, and this has been Dr. Andre Kwesi Kuma from the he's a medical director at the Eden Family Hospital. And like I said, we've been talking about sore throats, and this segment was brought to you by Lipton Tea and Voltic Natural Mineral Water.